Hey everyone, Stephen Glicker here from Roll for Combat, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about Season 4 of Critical Role and their recent decision to go with Dungeons & Dragons instead of their best-selling, worldwide, sold-out TTRPG Daggerheart. And what exactly was the decision behind it? Because I've been hearing things behind the scenes and through some context, and let's just say that, well, there was a very good reason that Critical Role went with D&D and not their own system, and a lot of it has to do with, well, money. So let's get into it. First, before I get into what I've been hearing, is that let's break down the financials of Critical Role, because as much money as you think they make, I don't think you really know how much money they make. So I'm going to break it down. So a couple years ago, there was a leak where the financial documents for Twitch came out, and it turns out that between August 2019 and September 2021, Critical Role was paid $9.6 million just on Twitch in advertising revenue. So we will average that out, because then we'll throw in YouTube and stuff. So we'll say approximately $5 million a year. And that's just in advertising, and that's just on Twitch. Next, we'll go into what it costs to actually advertise on Critical Role. So 3 years ago, I actually approached Critical Role to talk to them about advertising my own game, Battlezoo Eldamon, which you can play a Pokemon type character in D&D, and you can get it now at battlezoo.com. It's awesome. Check it out. Anyhow, they said that it costs $65,000 to do one ad for one show on Critical Role. And that was 3 years ago. And they often have 2, 3, 4 advertisers per show, depending on, the type of spot they have. So with that in mind, let's just say the advertising now is probably at least 65, if not, we'll round it up just to throw back in the napkin math. We'll say $100,000 per episode. So they have an average of 3 advertisers per show. That's $300,000 per episode. Then you throw in things like Twitch, you throw in Beacon, you throw in YouTube advertising. We'll just throw it up. We'll say about $400,000 per episode, which I actually think is extremely low. I think it's going to be way higher than that. But keep in mind, they have 70 employees, and they live in LA, which ain't cheap. So they have to be making enough money to support 70 employees plus the on-air talent, which makes a lot more than the other people. So we will say one season of Critical Role, about 100 episodes, actually more than 100 episodes. They're making $400,000 per episode. That's $40 million per season. And again, I think that's way low. I think they're making way more than that. Because then if you add in things like merchandising, you throw in the Amazon deal, which is worth a huge amount of money. That's worth millions right there. We'll say, let's round it all up between merchandising, Amazon, all the external advertising. We'll say $50 million approximately per season. That is about probably, I'll say at the very low end, 30 million, at the high end, about 50 million. And that sounds like a lot of money, but don't forget, they have to split that up amongst 70 plus people. Now, let's put that in perspective. From what I heard is that the reason that they've been delaying the naming of what they were going to be using for so long, whether they're going to be using Daggerheart as well as D&D as a negotiating tactic. And why not? Because think about it. If they are going to WotC and they're saying, hey, man, look, Daggerheart is a huge success. It's been sold out worldwide. We can't keep it in stock. We're going to be doing our 10th season of Critical Role. We're getting an absolute all-star cast. We're getting all the best people. We get Brandon Lee Mulligan. We're getting in probably Hollywood guest stars because they're doing the West Marches style so they can bring people in, bring people out. Like, they're going to do fantastic. So they say to them, if I'm in charge of this, and they say to WotC, hey, look, we can stick with Dungeons and Dragons if you're willing to sponsor us for the whole season, or we're going to go with our own Daggerheart. It's up to you. Now, again, this isn't really, quote, a shakedown, but let's just say it's a polite way of saying, would you like to do a full season of advertising? And you could just do D&D Beyond, and using D&D Beyond, which means, of course, we're going to use Dungeons & Dragons. And by the way, we will also advertise the newest versions of D&D, which is the 2024 version, showing all the tools and the tool sets and showing how great it is, because we know you're having trouble moving people over. So this is the best way possible. And we will give you that for the low, low price of $100,000 per episode. We'll say 100 episodes, so $10 million. What do you say? Now, again, I'm not saying that's what the deal was, but if I was in their shoes, and from what I've been hearing is that something like that was struck, is that they basically, being WotC, did an advertising deal with Critical Role, and they're going to call it that. They're going to call it advertising for a long-term deal throughout the whole season, where they're going to be promoting Dungeons & Dragons 2024 and the digital online tool sets. And in return, Critical Role will use Dungeons & Dragons. Now think about it. Why wouldn't they do that, okay? In fact, from what I've been hearing, because of the insane, massive success of Daggerheart, it just gave them even more negotiating power. Plus, they just lost Perkins. They just lost Crawford. I mean, they have everyone on the Critical Role staff. It would have been an absolute disaster if Critical Role went to Daggerheart. And you could say, okay, well, think about it. They're losing all this money and all these sales because Daggerheart would have been done so well. Well, yes and no. First of all, they're completely sold out, okay? They're printing new copies, I know, right now. But if you did the math, and if Daggerheart completely sold out and it just kept selling, would they have made as much money? And the answer is no, because I won't get into the full math, but when you sell Daggerheart to a store, you're not making the full amount of money. So if Daggerheart's selling for $50, you have to print it. In the end, they're making maybe $20, $15 per set. So for them to make another $10 million on sales of Daggerheart, they would have to sell like $30 million worth of product. And I think that's actually a little low. I think they'd have to even sell more, because don't forget, everyone gets their cut. And then there's shipping fees, their restocking fees, warehousing fees, all of that. As opposed to a sponsorship deal where it's literally, oh, this is what you need to do. You just need to use D&D. You just need to talk about it. You just need to show off the digital tools, and here's a check, and that's it. So that is what I've been hearing, is that there was no way in hell WotC was going to allow Critical Role in this all-star 10th season to use anything but Dungeons & Dragons, and that they made sure and did a huge sponsorship deal to make sure that they stuck with D&D, and that D&D was the preferred product that Critical was using for all of season 4. And there you go. There's the math behind it and why they did it. And to be honest, I think it was a pretty genius move. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if they made Critical Role, if they made Daggerheart literally just as a negotiating tactic. I think, yes, they made Daggerheart because they always wanted to make their own TTRPG. And I think it didn't hurt that Daggerheart was a huge success. It definitely didn't hurt that they managed to steal Chris Perkins and Jeremy Crawford. I mean, holy moly, that was a coup. It definitely didn't hurt that they got Brandon Lee Mulligan, who's now going to make the show even more popular. It definitely didn't hurt that they're going Wes Marcha style, which means they're going to be able to bring in guest stars throughout the season and bring life to a show that sometimes dips in the middle of the season. They'll always have something new and exciting to talk about throughout season 4. I actually think this was a genius move. And then they literally can go back to WotC and say, hey, look, we need to finalize whatever deal you want to do with us. But because of everything that's happening and how great things are, and, we need to raise the price, Originally, maybe it was $100,000 an episode. I'll tell you what, we're doing advertising now. It's $200,000 episode. But I'll tell you what, we'll give you a deal. You do the entire season. You advertise D&D Beyond for all of season 4, and we'll just call it an even $10 million and call it a deal. And it's all paid now, or maybe they pay it over the season, however they figure it out. The point is that It's a no-brainer, okay? Yes, it sucks for Daggerheart, but you know what? I think Daggerheart's going to be okay because I bet you they don't have a non-exclusivity deal, which means they can do other streams. They can do other streams for Daggerheart, and it is as good as doing Critical Role Season 4. No, it's definitely not as good, but it still allows them to do their own products, allows them to do side streams, and by doing a West Marches style, they'll be able to do more than one stream using the main cast. That's the brilliant part. And I think that was one of the big issues when they tried to do like Candela Obscura and some of the others, is that they weren't using the main cast, they were using side casts. And I think a combination of the system as well as the cast they're using really hurt them. But now, if they have, okay, we're doing West Marches, and the main core cast is maybe only in 1/3 of the episodes, and maybe they use that extra time to film other content using Daggerheart or other systems, it's a home run for them. Don't forget, they can do live shows. They can even just do their live shows. They can do a little bit of both. They can have an opening act. Maybe they do an opening act and they do a little bit of Daggerheart, and then they do the main act and they do a little bit of D&D. Who knows? The point is that by going to D&D, it doesn't hurt Critical Role. It doesn't hurt Daggerheart in as much as you think it does. And I think in the long run, Daggerheart is going to just be fine. And on top of that, don't forget, they can run their own ads and it won't cost them anything. I'm pretty sure we're going to see Daggerheart ads in Critical Role, unless, and this could be an extra, is that perhaps they actually bought out exclusivity, which means is that they said, I'll tell you what, we'll give it to you for $10 million, but we're going to run our own ads for Daggerheart. But if you don't want us to run any ads for Daggerheart and you want exclusive rights to use D&D for the entire season and only D&D, we'll call it $12 million. And that's very common in advertising where you have exclusivity. You know, you don't want to have Coke advertising next to Pepsi and so forth. This is very common. And again, WotC can just very easily hide this through advertising. It does not call sponsorship. It doesn't have to be called anything, you know, that is very obvious in their books. It could just be called an advertising deal. Anyhow, that's my take of what happened. Again, do subscribe to the show. And don't forget to check out our latest Kickstarter, which is now accepting late pledges, where we have 3 secret tomes for Shadowdark. And you're going to get a sneak preview of the upcoming Deathbringer TTRPG coming out next year. And you get to enter and be in the playtest for that. In fact, I have a special guest, Mr. Deathbringer himself, tell you more about it right now.
Deathbringer here. Ready to toss your dice and your morals into the abyss? Then back the Roll for Combat Kickstarter, weaklings. It's packed with hundreds of savage, blood-soaked options to obliterate your enemy. And better yet, you'll get to use them in my game, the Deathbringer RPG. Coming next year, the Deathbringer RPG isn't some soft, cuddlecore fantasy nonsense. It's fast, mean, and completely unforgiving. In Deathbringer, you don't save the world. You stab it in the heart, loot the corpse, and set it on fire for good measure. Every backer of the Roll for Combat Secret Tomes for Shadowdark Kickstarter will get an exclusive sneak peek at the glorious carnage of Deathbringer and a chance to play in the beta test later this year. So sharpen your blade, sell your soul, and back it now. Ignore me and I'll use your spine as a bookmark. Back now.